Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call to order this City Council special meeting of January the 2nd, 2024. This special meeting is for the purposes, wait a minute, I'm reading the wrong thing. Who put those together? Okay, I am going to call to order this City Council meeting of January 2nd, 2024. Tonight's meeting is a hybrid meeting. Community members are welcome to join us either in person or remotely through Zoom or by telephone. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Tim Chizen. Councilmember Black.
Here.
Councilmember Curtis.
Here.
Councilmember Falcone.
Here.
Councilmember Pascal.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Arnold.
Here.
Mayor Sweet.
Here. Thank you. And we will begin right away with the city manager introducing the oaths of office of our new council members.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Welcome to our friends and family and residents who are going to watch us. This is a wonderful day for us. It's our first council meeting of the year. The day we're also going to swear in new council members and also elect a new mayor, deputy mayor. So I'm going to just briefly describe what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes for all of you. So first of all, John Olson, the Honorable John Olson, our Kirkland Municipal Court presiding judge, will be providing the oaths of office to the 3 council members who were elected in November. He'll be doing that by calling them down in alphabetical order. So following those oaths of office, there will be some professional photography of those oaths. We will then have the current mayor is going to preside over the nomination and selection of the mayor and deputy mayor. Those will both happen with the current mayor presiding. After those selections are made, we will then have a break. At that break, we'll be able to take pictures with families and friends. We'll also have some cake to celebrate. That break will last for about 15 minutes, and then we'll reconvene the council meeting with our new mayor. So with that as an overview, I'm hoping to find him. I'd like to introduce our presiding court judge, right behind me, John Olson. Welcome, Judge Olson.
Thank you.
We're going to provide you with a microphone, Judge. We're going to give you a microphone.
Facing this way.
Chris, do you want us to move?
Okay.
And then, yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Just like.
All right. Please raise your right hand. Kelly Curtis, do you, having been duly elected to the office of Kirkland City Council, position number 2, solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of this office as prescribed by law and to the best of your ability, and that you will support and maintain the Constitution of the State of Washington and of the United States of America?
I do.
Congratulations. Member Falcone.
When we were smiling.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Do you, Amy Falcone, having been duly elected to the office of Kirkland City Council, position number 6, solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of this office as prescribed by law and to the best of your ability, and that you will support and maintain the Constitution of the State of Washington and of the United States of America?
Yes, I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And finally, Councilmember Tim Chisholm. Raise your right hand. And do you, John Tim Chisholm, having been duly elected to the office of Kirkland City Council, position number 4, solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of this office as prescribed by law and to the best of your ability, and that you will support and maintain the Constitution of the State of Washington and of the United States of America?
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, as one of my last duties as the current mayor of the city of Kirkland, it is now time for the selection of the mayor and deputy mayor. City manager?
Yes. So, Madam Mayor, we'll have you solicit nominations first for the position of mayor. Once that decision's made, we're going to ask that you stay and solicit nominations for the position of deputy mayor. Once both those selections are made, we'll take the vote, and then we'll have a short break where we'll have photos and chance to celebrate your mayorship and the newly elected members, as well as our new council members. So,
Thank you.
call for nominations is the next item.
Thank you. Nominations are now in order for the position of mayor. Councilmember Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to nominate Councilmember Kelly Curtis to be the next mayor of the city of Kirkland.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to nominate Kelly Curtis for mayor. Are there any other nominations for the position of mayor? Seeing none, nominations are closed. Hold on. Do we do the vote together or
No, one at a time.
one at a time? Okay, then, all those in favor of Kelly Curtis as our incoming mayor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Now, nominations are in order for the position of deputy mayor. Councilmember Pascal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to nominate Deputy Mayor J. Arnold to continue serving.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Pascal, seconded by Councilmember Black. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Okay, we will now take a 10-minute break.
But I'll take a short break. We're going to put some cake out to celebrate, and there'll be opportunities for friends and family to have photos with the new members in their new positions. We'll have a 15-minute break.
Thank you. We are resuming after a brief break, and the former Mayor Sweet and I just quickly changed seats, so I'm trying to get myself organized here. But I really want to thank the council. I'm honored and excited to be appointed as your next mayor. I have to thank Mayor Sweet for her warm and wonderful personality and for her exceptional leadership through some very challenging times and some very transformative years. I'm excited about the future of Kirkland and the opportunity to continue to work on the incredible progress we've made on our city goals and our council goals and our city work plan. And I look forward to serving this dedicated, hardworking council and this wonderful city to the best of my ability. So thank you, council members. I'm honored to serve. And we will begin. And I have to figure out how to do this. So, honors and proclamations. Thank you, Councilmember Sweet. So, City Manager.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So we'll be proclaiming January 15th, 2024 as Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service in Kirkland, Washington. For those of you watching at home or here in the audience, the memo describing this has links to our city website, which has lots of opportunities for people to volunteer for that day of service. And reading the proclamation will be our council member, Penny Sweet. And here to receive the proclamation is Mike Milligan, who's a retired president from Verizon Global Wholesale and a board member and Kirkland resident for 25 years, and his daughter, Whitney. So welcome. You'll be coming up here.
Proclaiming January the 15th, 2024 as Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service in Kirkland, Washington. Whereas, like the Reverend, I used to be mayor. Whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to advancing equality, social justice, and opportunity for all, challenged all residents to help build a more perfect union and live up to the purpose and potential of America. And his teachings continue to guide and inspire us in addressing challenges in our own communities. And whereas in 1994, Congress initiated the King Holiday and Service Act, a nationwide effort to transform the federal holiday honoring the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. into a day of community service, grounded in Dr. King's teachings that helps solve social problems while focusing on bringing people together and breaking down the barriers that have divided us as a nation. And whereas serving one's community on the King holiday is an appropriate way to honor Dr. King, meet local and national needs, bring our residents together, and strengthen our communities and nation. And whereas the Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service is the only federal holiday commemorated as a national day of service and offers an opportunity for Americans to give back to their communities on the holiday and make an ongoing commitment to service throughout the year. And whereas the Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service projects are being organized by a whole range of nonprofit and community organizations, educational institutions, public agencies, private businesses, and other organizations across the nation. And whereas Kirkland community members are encouraged to participate in King Day of Service volunteer events and commit to a full year of service to their community and can visit the city's website for volunteer opportunities. Now, therefore, our mayor, Kelly Curtis, on behalf of the City Council, does hereby proclaim Martin Luther King Jr. Day as Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service in Kirkland and calls upon the people of Kirkland, Washington, to serve their neighbors and their community through participation in community service projects on Martin Luther King Jr. Day and to commit to a year of service to generate positive change.
Thank you very much. We're grateful to be here this evening. We appreciate it. Congratulations, Mayor Curtis. Thank you, Ms. Sweet, for this honor. You're presiding over one of the greatest cities in the world, and I've been around the world, and I had an opportunity to choose where I would spend the rest of my life, and Kirkland is that place. The good message, though, is that I convinced my daughter, after 20 years, to also move to Kirkland so we can also pay taxes here. So now you've got young blood to be able to help carry forth the dream. And with Dr. King, in celebrating him, I'm particularly grateful that Kirkland has stepped out to honor him and to ensure that this day of service, I think January the 15th is the holiday, is one that all Kirkland residents can participate in. And we're grateful and we thank you for that. And we look forward to a significant future here in Kirkland. I call Kirkland I come from Monterey, California. I'm very fond of Carmel, and when I first started walking up and down the streets here in Lake Washington, it reminded me of Carmel. Now I call it the Riviera of the Northwest. So congratulations, and we look forward to continuing our residency here.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can't walk.
It's happy.
All right, now we're moving on to communications, items of the audience. Goodbye, family. This is the time in the meeting where we normally hear from the public on matters that are not quasi-judicial or scheduled for a public hearing, of which there are none scheduled for this evening. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes, and the council will receive up to 3 comments each side, or both sides of each issue. If you are either present in person or virtually and would like to address the council during this items from the audience period, please sign up using the online public comment instruction link or person using the posted QR code. For those participating by phone, please dial *9 to be recognized to speak. Community members will be called in the order in which they signed up. Items for the audience is an important part of our business meeting, and we ask that everyone be treated with kindness and respect. We ask that you please not clap or applaud after a speaker or express your disagreement with a speaker. We want everyone in Kirkland to feel welcome, expressing their viewpoints regardless of content. Because they can be disruptive, signs and placards are not allowed in council chambers during our meetings, regardless of their content. City Clerk.
Mayor, we have 4 people signed up to address the council this evening, starting with Rex Rempel, followed by Bev Marcus.
Mr. Rimple. Thank you.
Next speaker is Bev Marcus, followed by Alex Zimmerman and Kurt Dresner.
Ms. Marcus.
David, on the back.
Mayor Curtis, Deputy Mayor Arnold, council members. I'm Bev Marcus, and I live in downtown Kirkland. In the spirit of the new year, here's one of my wishes. A downtown core where pedestrian safety rather than traffic throughput is a paramount goal. Via emails and focus groups, I've communicated to the city my pedestrian perils navigating the downtown core, describing the fear that grips me because of too many close calls with drivers as I use crosswalks. Case in point, Central Way crossing at the Wing Dome. Until recently, orange flags were the tool for pedestrians to signal our crossing. Not really effective, but cheap. Then after months of construction, a flashing beacon, or RRFB, was installed at a cost of some $200,000. An improvement? When my husband and I cross, we count the cars speeding through, sometimes up to 4. One driver was in such a hurry that he circled back around the block to harass us because we yelled as he ignored the flashers. These costly beacons give pedestrians a dangerously false sense of security. In fairness, I've always received timely responses when I ask the city why we can't have more traffic calming measures. The short answer, Central Way is an arterial where traffic calming measures are limited because arterials need to accommodate the highest traffic volumes. Is that assumption true? Is it immutable? Does Central Way have to be designated as an arterial with need to prioritize traffic flow? What stops us from undesignating Central as an arterial when traffic calming measures, such as raised crosswalks could be considered? A 2018 Federal Highway Administration report estimated that the average cost of raised crosswalks, is less than $10,000. Even adjusting for inflation, that's magnitudes cheaper than an RRFB, which is dependent on driver discretion rather than creating a barrier that actually slows traffic. I've given just one example of a hazardous Central Way crossing. When I bring this up with folks, a typical response is to chime in with their own downtown crossing stress stories. I offer no solutions today, just planting a seed, perhaps. Given we're now updating our comp and transportation plans, I challenge us to rethinking the seemingly ingrained assumptions that we've made and to imagine a safer downtown environment where the stress-free movement of pedestrians, not traffic throughput, is a key component of the overarching vision. Thank you. And congratulations, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Zimmerman.
Happy New Year. Yeah, for everybody. In good health. Sieg Heil, my dirty damn Nazi fascist junta. My name is Alex Zimmerman. I'm president of Stand Up America. What has happened today in Bellevue Council meeting? Yeah, what is I come? What is make me absolutely shocked? I never see like this before, almost for 4 years, what is I live here in this location. They elect deputy mayor, Iranian Muslim Mo Malakotinian, who first time consul candidate in who live only for 10 years. Yeah, here. Guys, it makes me totally shocked. Yeah. It's not about election. It's about Bellevue Council declare right now aggressive war against American and Jew. Why they doing this? Why they elect men who only 10 years and first time elect, you know what it means, and he Iranian Muslim. This makes me absolutely shocked. And I try to understand why they doing this. What is motivation? Why they have aggressively show so they not care about American and not care about Jew? Why they doing this? Because this mafia, this organized criminal, this junta control all city. They show who's the master, who's a Führer in Bellevue. You know what this means? It don't have absolutely sense. Plus, he's a work for Amazon manager, make $200,000. In Bellevue Council always support corporation. This is a classic fascism. So my question right now to you guys, can you doing something different, you know what this mean, be a real American, and everybody can be real American, you know what this mean? Why Bellevue so exception? They interrupt me in every meeting they cannot handle. So I go and spoke for many years. In every meeting I have, they interrupt me. What they doing to Mayor Robinson? You know what this means? She's a key to everything. So guys, I want to explain to you how is this possible. So East Side right now come from real American location, freedom of speech, in respect America and American people, you know what this mean. to pure fascism, to pure bandito, you know what this means, who declare war, officially declare war against American and Jew. I cannot understand this. I cannot understand what is happened so fast. You know what this means? Almost for like 6 months, they cut everything for freedom of speech. Why are they doing this? Are they scared? Are they bandita? We need stopping this bandita. It's a mafia, a junta, what is we need stopping for 40 years.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to offer a comment on behalf of council. What we heard tonight, frankly, was hurtful and offensive to our community. The city council does not condone those comments. We are committed to making Kirkland a safe, inclusive, and welcoming place for all. At the same time, Items for the Audience does provide an opportunity for the community to express their views to council, regardless of content. Mr. Dresner.
Hi, good evening. I just sort of signed up last minute. I first just wanted to say congratulations to all the newly elected and re-elected council members, and Happy New Year to everyone. I really love living in Kirkland. I really love Kirkland. I think it's a fantastic city, and every time I leave, I'm reminded of how great we have it here. But I want to make sure that we don't rest on our laurels, and I know that a lot of you have bold visions for the future, and I want to encourage you to be bold. I want to encourage you to lead the way in our region and in our country. I'm like Mayor Curtis said, I am excited for the future of Kirkland, and let's make it awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? If not, that item is closed, and I realize that I've neglected to excuse Councilmember Pascal. So with council's permission, we will excuse Councilmember Pascal for the rest of the meeting. And we will now move on to the consent calendar. Before I have a motion, I would like to ask Deputy Mayor to present the audit of accounts.
Thank you, Mayor. We had payroll in the amount of $5,387,652.44 and bills in the amount of $9,059,154.71.
Is there a motion to,
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move the acceptance of the consent calendar.
Second.
thank you. It has been moved by Councilmember Sweet and seconded by Councilmember Black. All in the favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The consent calendar has been approved. And now we're already at business at 8:15. So we will move to item 10A, Fire Station 27, Redmond Medic Coalition, ILA, City Manager.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So we are going to ask the council to not take action on this tonight. I'm going to explain that in a second. Our Fire Chief, Joe Sanford, is going to make the presentation. The sharp eye of Councilmember Black identified a conflict in the ILA that needs clarification with Redmond. It's related to the half station and whether or not there's a reserve car there. So Chief Joe Sanford is going to go over the ILA itself, but we're going to ask the council to hold this until the next council meeting where we're going to bring it back with the clarification. So no action is needed by the council this time, but we do want to give you the presentation and answer any questions that you might have. So with that, I'll ask Chief Joe Sanford to give you the presentation.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Council, and congratulations to all the new members. I'm going to share my screen. I have just a couple slides. And can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to have an update on the co-location interlocal agreement between Redmond and Kirkland, and just kind of give you a broad overview of what it contains and some of the benefits. Some of the direct benefits to co-locating medics and EMTs is obviously we get faster response times for ALS if they remain in Kirkland. One of the things that that medic unit responds to about 2,100 calls a year, and over 1,700 of them are in Kirkland. So it's a great benefit to have them inside our response area. And Station 27 is an ideal location, being across the new Station 27 being across. One of the things that makes the location ideal is that the medics can interact with the emergency when they follow through with a patient that's been brought to Evergreen, and they can talk to the docs about what their decisions were in the field, and then how the tests the doctor runs and the final conclusions that they make. It enhances their skills. Well, it also enhances EMT skills when the medics are in the stations talking to us in the same way about that we make on patients in the field and what the doctors found. So in the station, and 10 years ago, 12 years ago, they were in Station 27 and were there for about a decade, and have a history of success co-locating with the medics. The interlocal agreement in its language year term, we have designated in the Station 27 a half bay. That's what the city manager was talking about, that Councilmember Black pointed out. We have a half bay that they will contribute to the cost of. They also can put 2 vehicles in, and there's not enough room to put 2 vehicles in a half bay. So that's the language we need to clean up. But they would be paying for that half bay, some office space, sleeping quarters, and a supply room. So they cover the cost of the square footage as it relates to the entire station. Then throughout the term of the agreement, they cover operations and maintenance on that same square footage and on that basis. The interlocal agreement can be terminated with 18 months notice by either side. And so what we're going to do is go back and correct that language and then bring it back for approval at a future council meeting. Our time limit is that it needs to be 27, which we're projecting right now is it will be end of March, sometime in April, so we have some time. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Chief. City Manager, do you want to address the ILA, or should we go to comments and questions?
We'll go to comments and questions, and then I can wrap up. And like I said, we'll bring this back when we have a chance to clarify.
Okay. Any comments, questions? All right. Back to you.
Okay. Thank you so much. So, well, I guess I will just say, so the agreement that we reached with Redmond is to have the primary unit, the unit they responded, in the half bay, for which in the ILA, Redmond fully contributed for the cost of the construction of that half bay and all of our soft costs associated with it. We also want to make it possible for reserve car to be there, but the ILA agreement itself is about the primary car for 15 years. So we may have opportunities where we need to have our own reserve vehicles. So we need to just separate the discussion of the reserve vehicle from the discussion of the primary vehicle and the paramedics. So that's the clarification that we need to get with Redmond. So hoping that will happen fairly quickly, and we'll bring it back to finalize this. And again, thank you, Councilmember Black, for catching that.
Thank you. All right, then we will move to item 10B, 2023-2028 Transportation Improvement Program Adoption, Resolution 5617. City Manager.
All right, so this next item we'll be swapping out here. This presentation is going to be made by our Interim Director of Public Works, Truck Deaver, and this is to, I'm hoping you're, I see, it's Rod Steitzer and Laura Drake are going to be giving this presentation. All right. And so this was a carry forward from the discussion the council had on December 12th. And so we had the public hearing last fall, and we're going to be asking for final action here tonight. So I think I'll be turning it over to Rod. our
Thank
capital
you, City
projects
Manager. Actually, we've got Laura Drake, our new CIP supervisor, going to be finishing up this presentation, just a few short slides. So Laura?
Great. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and City Council. I have 3 short slides for you this evening to talk about the Transportation Improvement Program for the 2023 to 2028 Capital Improvement Program. The TIP is not a planning document, but it is a reflection of the transportation components within the CIP. By state law, the city must adopt their TIP between January 1st and July 1st of each year. To summarize recent activities, in early November, staff presented to Council the second update of the 2023 to 2028 Capital Improvement Program and held a hearing at the Planning Commission for the CFP. After a public announcement, staff held the TIP hearing to receive feedback from both Council and the community. And in December, Council adopted the CFP and the CIP. And now this evening, January 2nd, Council may choose to adopt this update to the TIP. After receiving no comments at the November meeting, at the November public hearing, staff recommends approving Resolution R5617 to adopt the 2023 to 2028 update to the TIP. And going forward, all future TIP adoptions are planned to occur in January of each calendar year. On this final slide, I have a pie chart on the bottom right highlighting the different types of projects funded in the TIP, which include safety, public transit, capacity, non-motorized, and maintenance projects. And if Council were to adopt the TIP this evening, staff will transmit it to the State Department of Transportation, the Puget Sound Regional Council, neighboring agencies, and King County. Are there any questions?
Councilmember Tim Chisholm.
Thank you. Did the Planning Commission make a recommendation on this?
Rod, can you confirm if the Planning Commission made a recommendation on this update to the TIP, please?
So the process includes, and Laura, you might, if you could go back one slide, coordination through the hearing and CIP process with the CFP, the Capital Facilities Plan. The Planning Commission reviews the Capital Facility Plan, which then is the planning document used to generate the funding document of the Capital Improvement Plan. And the TIP is simply a reflection of the Capital Improvement Plan. So by extension, I would say, yes, the Planning Commission has weighed in on the TIP, but it's through the Capital Facilities Plan, specifically the TIP. I don't believe that we took this to the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Councilmember Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'll get us started. I assume that since Councilmember Pascal was too sick to actually be here to talk about the TIP, that it must be fine. So I would like to move for adoption of Resolution R5617, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Kirkland adopting the 2023-2028 update to the Transportation Improvement Program for the City of Kirkland.
Second. All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Black and second by Councilmember Sweet. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor, the question is on the motion to approve Resolution 5617, adopting the 2023-28 update to the Transportation Improvement Program for the City of Kirkland. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rod and Laura. All right, we are now moving to item 10C, 2024 City Council Committee Interest. City Manager.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So we're not looking for action tonight, but what we are going to be doing is presenting the council with the various standing committee assignments and asking for your suggestions of interest in many different ways. And here to give you that presentation is our Government Affairs Manager, Diana Hart.
Good evening, Council. I have a brief presentation for you tonight. So starting off, Kirkland is really well represented regionally. We have statewide, we have an outsized impact for the size of our city. On this slide, I have all of the new regionally appointed boards and commissions for 2024 in bold for new council members serving on those, and the asterisks are entirely new seats. So quite the list of regional engagement that the city has. The distinction between these boards and commissions and the ones that we'll be talking about next is that these seats represent more than just Kirkland. They represent Sound Cities Association and the AWC, Association of Washington Cities more broadly. So while Kirkland is obviously well represented at these tables, when you represent the city at these tables, you're also representing more than just Kirkland. So when you get to work with just Kirkland, we're looking at the council work groups. The descriptions and meeting times for each of these seats I'm going to be talking about are more fleshed out in your packet. Happy to answer any specific questions, but I won't be diving into all of those for this presentation. Starting in the middle, there are 3 council work groups that meet as needed for specific time periods on narrow topics. The second subject is the city committees. So these include the Disability Board for the internal purposes, and the other, as mandated by state statute, to have a council member as chair, is the Tourism Budget Advisory Group, the Tourism Development Committee. And then the final section is the long list of the regional committees from very specific topics like YRA8's Salmon Recovery Council and the I-405 EAG, to broad, all-encompassing topics like PSRC's Executive Board and SCA's Public Issues Committee. They cover a lot of things, with a whole lot of content that come through these. These seats are granted to the city either through interlocal agreements or due to the city's size or location. Each is supported by staff subject matter experts at the city, so don't worry if you're not a policy expert in them when you start serving. Moving on to next steps. If you're interested in serving on any of these seats or in not continuing on a seat on which you currently serve, you have an opportunity to say so tonight or to let the mayor and deputy mayor know by the end of this week. If you send an email, if you could CC city manager and I on it, that would be greatly appreciated. This will ensure that the mayor and deputy mayor have time to meet next week to develop a proposal for council's consideration at your next meeting. So I will pull up all of the committees if you want to talk about them. While there are many entities on the side, I want to note that they are not all equal in their workload. Some meet as needed quarterly, all the way to the Ledge Work Group, which meets for maybe a couple hours a week during the session. So a big variety in the level of work that each needs. So if you have specific questions about what each of these do, happy to answer to the extent that I can, or you're also welcome to engage with staff or your fellow council members throughout the week and learn what might be a good fit for you and your interests. So with that, I'll turn things back to you.
Thank you, Diana. Kirkland is well represented. There's over 50 committees that we have a seat at the table and have a chance to advocate for, as Diana said, our Sound City Association and Kirkland itself. So be proud of your hardworking council. If you're comfortable tonight talking about any changes you want to make or any, I know Councilmember Tim Chisholm, you probably need some time to study up on these committees. Please share tonight, and then again, as Diana said, Deputy Mayor and I would love to receive an email with any thoughts. So Councilmember Sweet.
I have a couple of suggestions. I notice it's not called out here, but we do have 2 positions on the Cascade Water Alliance, the regular position, which I will have to stay on because I'm the chair. But there is also an alternate position, which currently Councilmember Pascal holds. I also got a note from Deanna Dawson from AWC today reminding me that we have participated, at least through the duration of my term as mayor, on the AWC Large City Work Group. I don't see it on the list.
So it's not guaranteed to the city, you do have to apply for it.
Right.
So we could apply again as well.
She was hoping to hear of some interest from Kirkland. The other suggestion that I have is that we have, on most of our city committees and the council work groups, more than one individual. We've not done that with the Tourism Development Committee, and I would suggest that we have an alternate member to that committee.
Thank you. Councilmember Falcone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's my first time saying that to you. That's kind of exciting. Well, thank you for this. I appreciate that we're doing this process and that we're being really transparent about everybody's interests. So thank you for that. Probably not a surprise. I'm interested in continuing. Are you want our interest tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm very interested in continuing on the Lake Washington School District Coordinating Committee. I really enjoy that work, and I have 3 children in the Lake Washington School District. So I'm very engaged. I'm on the PTA and PTO boards at their schools, and so I would very much like to continue to represent Kirkland in those meetings. I am also very interested in the Tourism Development Committee. As no surprise to you, I've been really engaged in bringing more diverse events to the city of Kirkland through dedicated funding in our budget, through working to bring the Africans on the East Side Fashion Show, to working to bring the Pride Across the Bridge holiday potluck that we just had. This is something that I'm very, very passionate about, and I'm really excited to hopefully get engaged in that as well. Another new thing that I'm very interested in is the NORCOM Principals Assembly, working with our behavioral health crisis focused. I think there's a lot of, this is one piece of the puzzle, is our dispatch, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. And I've brought forth ideas in the past to add to our budget set-asides for mental health professionals in our dispatch. That's something that there's still work to do to bring folks along in that, and I'd really like to be a voice at the table to help represent Kirkland on that, because that's something I'm particularly passionate about. I'm interested in continuing either as our alternate or representative on the Racer Principals Assembly. Again, this is something that I'm very passionate about and have personal lived experience as well as experience on the Human Services Commission and the council work related to that. I am happy to remain as our PIC alternate and or member. I don't know what the interest is there. I do have to say PIC had a really good discussion, and I know I owe you notes. I was on vacation, so I owe notes from the last PIC meeting. I do have them, just need to polish them. And there was a really good discussion about who's going to be the PIC representatives in this coming year. And the discussion really focused on how PIC is a really good opportunity for newly electeds to get to know electeds regionally. And that they felt there were so many passings of the baton being spoken of, so that those who were new could get to know regional issues, could get to know folks regionally. So that's just something that I wanted to mention, that I am happy to continue serving in that capacity, but I'm also happy to help pass the baton if there's someone else that's interested in having that opportunity. I really enjoy hearing from other folks, but I also get to sit on the SCA board. So again, happy to serve, but don't need to. Same with the Transportation Ad Hoc Work Group. I'm happy to continue doing that, but also happy to provide that opportunity to someone else that may be passionate about that as well. So wanted to open that up again, if there's interest. Also, there's a long list of stuff in here that I don't know a ton about. I just read emails about all the work that, former Mayor Sweet, Councilmember Sweet has been working on. So I want to also say that as you go through this, if you need people as alternates for stuff, feel free to reach out. Just because I didn't mention it tonight, that it didn't bubble up, it doesn't mean I'm not interested. I'm interested in a lot of these things. So let me know, ping me if there's something that we need another council member on. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple things to note as we are kicking things around here. For the East Trail Regional Advisory Council, I serve as co-chair there, and one of the things that we are doing is organizing a conference seminar to happen in 2024 of the East Trail to kind of set the next vision for things going forward. We last did this in 2015 and really have accomplished a lot of what we set out to from that inspirational process. As we kick this off again, I'd like the opportunity to continue that work and at least go through this year to be able to get through that conference and planning. Same thing with the 405-167 Executive Advisory Group. There's some financing issues that we're in the middle of. Would like to continue that. I am open to changes on East Side Transportation Partnership. I've served on that since I joined council, and if there are other council members that want to be plugged into transportation issues, that may be something that we can do. Kirkland has 2 seats. It's Councilmember Black and I that serve there. Finally, I am interested in continuing on the King County City's climate collaboration. Like was mentioned at the legislative session, this group is meeting weekly during the session to talk about climate bills and would like to continue that at least through the session. Councilmember Black and I serve on that. We could technically have a third person there. It's just more of an ad hoc group versus that are of folks that are willing to go testify and be involved on bills versus anything where we only have a particular seat. We're just limited by quorum at that point. Thank you.
Thank you, that was helpful. Councilmember Black?
I didn't raise my hand.
I know, but I'm going to let.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think I can keep mine pretty short. Actually, I provided the former mayor, Sweet, and Deputy Mayor Diana, and City Manager Triplett several weeks ago my overall interest in these regional committees and work groups and whatnot. The short of it is I'd like to continue in all the roles I'm currently in. I was interested in Tourism Development Committee, but I understand there's plenty of interest in that, and that's fine. I trust my colleagues to handle that very well. And I think I heard Councilmember Falcone say that she has some interest in opening up the Transportation Ad Hoc Work Group. I would be willing to serve in that role. It does dovetail well with the work I do with the ETP, and now my recent appointment as an alternate for the Regional Transportation Committee. So I guess I'm developing an expertise in transportation, which is fine because it's super important. I think that summarizes it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tim Chisholm, anything you want to add?
I would express my interest in the Tourism Development Committee. I think it would be a pleasure to serve there. I think I have a lot of business background with small businesses, entrepreneurship, and can connect well with that population. The Lake Washington School District is also another interest of mine, simply because I have kids in the district. And I have had a significant amount of involvement with the Office of the Superintendent through the Planning Commission and coordinating with him, and as well as the Office of Facilities that's within the Superintendent's office. And they've had a significant communication with the Planning Commission for years, and I've been a part of that. As well as the King County Cities Climate Collaboration, and that is just climate change is something I'm passionate about, although I don't know a lot about that committee, but I'm just throwing that out there. And that's what I see, what I'll comment on today.
Awesome, thank you. That's very helpful. Obviously, we can't hear from Councilmember Pascal today, so I will follow up with him to see. Oh, he sent an email. Haven't had time. So, all right, the only two things I'll add from me. Whoops.
Did you want to hear from me?
Did I skip you?
It's okay. It's okay. I know, I'm yesterday's news. That's exactly what my husband said as he left here this evening.
Oh, okay, I'm pink now. Councilmember Sweet, please.
I think this is a really good discussion. I am on 2 new committees this year, so I'm kind of excited about, but I'm also lost a lot of positions that I was pretty excited about. I will be adding membership on MUPAC for regional water quality. I have talked to the chair of that group, and they are inviting me to join them. I also am interested in the Tourism Development Committee. I sort of developed that committee when I first came on council, and I think we've done a terrific job with it. I'd be happy to perform as an alternate, but you guys are going to have to figure that one out. And in terms of, I will continue to chair the Metropolitan Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Hopefully, I will have staff support. Finding the replacement for my old staff support is going to be an impossible job. But, so other than that, I am happy with my assignments and willing to step up wherever you need me.
Thank you, and I apologize for skipping you. All right, all I was going to add from me was I am interested in dropping WIRA, which Councilmember Falcone has a lot on her plate, but I did find some nice synergy between Wyra and King Conservation District, your new committee. And then I'm open to stepping off PIC. The advantage of me remaining on PIC is I am on the nominations committee. If I move to alternate or I'm off, I can no longer serve. But what your comments about PIC were interesting. So I will, if someone wants to step up as PIC, I'm happy to step aside. So let me know. Anything else?
I just have one more comment, and that's with regard to the climate collaboration work that Deputy Mayor Arnold and Councilmember Black are involved in. I think we need to collaborate a little bit on what the Solid Waste Advisory Committee is doing, because we've got municipal representation across the county on that. And as we move forward, particularly with the RAP Act this year, I think it will be an important body of work.
Councilmember Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One thing I forgot to talk about, and I should, and I don't need to be on all the Principals Assembly, but I would note that NORCOM Principals Assembly does dovetail really well with my role as on the Principals Assembly for RACER. So I would be interested in it. At the same time, it could just be, I know Councilmember Falcone expressed interest in it too, so it could just be us coordinating really closely together and communicating really closely together on what's going on with RACER, community response, and NORCOM. But I'd also be interested in that too. So thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, and if you have any additional thoughts, please let us know by Friday, and Deputy Mayor and I will do our best. So let's move on to the pool ballot measure follow-up, item 10D, City Manager.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Diana.
So Hillary De La Cruz, our management analyst, is going to come up and make this presentation, but I did want to do a few introductory remarks before she tees it up. So I know council has gotten some feedback from the public about why are we looking at this again, and I just wanted to have a chance to briefly provide an overview of that. So what we try to be clear about in the memo, and we want to be clear about today, is we are not asking the council whether or not we want to go to the ballot again. Tonight we're going to be talking about, should we do a community survey to find out why the ballot failed, and then is there any community interest in proceeding? And there's two additional pieces of information I think it was helpful for us to propose this to you in the December 12th budget. The first is when we did the PFEC process with the full community support, one of the things they said was they felt that we should try the ballot measure, which one of their mantras was something for everyone in the ballot, and so we did that. They also said that if it didn't pass, they would recommend that we come back and try again with something smaller and more focused. We also heard at the December 12th council meeting, Ken McKenzie, who was the person who chaired the opposition committee around the campaign against it, actually came unsolicited and spoke to the council and said that he felt that a focused, sensible pool was at least worth consideration, and that he thought a survey to understand whether there's a path forward was something that he was willing to work with the city council on and with the city staff on. So for those reasons, we proposed to you on December 12th that it was worth at least exploring from the community what in the ballot measure they didn't like. Was it too big? Was it too complex? Or was it simply we just don't want a pool? And we want to talk to the council tonight about what kinds of questions you'd like us to ask in that survey. But again, I want to emphasize that we're not asking council to make a decision whether or not to proceed. That would happen after the survey when you have the full information from what the community says as a response. So with that as a long overview, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Hillary De La Cruz, and then we'll be happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation. So
Thank you. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. It's good to be here with you in the new year. As City Manager Triplett mentioned, my name is Hillary De La Cruz, and I'm the Management Analyst with Parks and Community Services. I am joined by Parks and Community Services Director Lynn Swagstra and Finance and Administration Director Michael Olson, who Lynn is available to answer some questions, and Michael will be presenting on one slide related to potential levy funding. And tonight, our presentation is about the pool follow-up and specifically about the survey. So our agenda is on the screen here, and as you all know, after significant community input, Council placed Proposition 1 on the ballot last November, and it failed. And as City Manager Triplett just mentioned, at the December 12th meeting, Council allocated funding for a community survey to learn about why Proposition 1 did not pass and to understand the community's priorities for the future. And so tonight's presentation will cover the new community survey design and topics,
and seek council's input on the topics, review the timeline and exploration should council decide to explore an August 2024 ballot measure, and also talk briefly about the potential levy funding availability. This slide briefly outlines the community survey design. Staff are signing a contract with EMC Research and working on survey questions right now. And EMC is the group who has managed our surveys in the past as well. And so the overall goal of the survey is to gather more insight into the November 2023 results, so council can use this information to decide what to do next. And as mentioned in the memo, at this time, there is no assumption that council is planning to move forward or not. The EMC managed statistically valid survey would use the same sample size and response gathering methods as a spring 2023 survey, with responses from 400 participants gathered via telephone and an online survey with online links specific to the intended participant. The goal is to talk to people who voted in the last election, and staff are working with EMC on the specific questions, and we'll share the final draft questions with council at the January 16th council meeting, with the goal of final question approval on January 18th for the survey to open right after that. And after the statistically valid survey, an open link survey would be hosted on the city's website again, and that would be open through February 6th, right before the council meeting, where you would be hearing the results from the statistically valid survey. And so those results, again, will be shared on the February 6th meeting, and then the open link survey results would be shared at the February 20th council meeting. So the next two slides contain the overarching topics that staff have asked EMC Research to design a survey to answer. And these were in your council packet, but I'll just read them out loud as well. And after I review these two slides of question topics, I will seek council's feedback about the direction of the survey. So these topics include answering, why did the ballot measure fail? Is the community opposed to any new property taxes at this time? Was the proposed measure too expensive? Was the funding mechanism too complicated? Was the measure too focused on the aquatic recreation and community center? Was the permanent ongoing levy the reason it failed? Was the location of the Houghton Park and Ride a reason it failed? When people supported the ballot measure, what caused them to vote yes? Was a smaller, more focused pool funded with a time-limited levy that expires garner more community support? And would the location of a smaller, more focused pool matter? And if so, would the community prefer a pool at the Houghton Park and Ride or at the North Kirkland Community Center? So those are the main topic areas that we have shared with EMC Research so far. And staff are seeking council's feedback and specifically want to know if this list of question topics covers what council would like to learn from the survey, if there are any additional topics council would like to explore. Any council feedback will be shared with EMC Research, and we will do our best to incorporate the feedback into the survey instrument. And then after your discussion on the survey topics, we have 3 more slides about the potential levy funding and the timeline and next steps. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to council to provide feedback about these topics, and please let me know if you would like me to go back to any of the slides.
All right, do we have any feedback on the survey questions? Councilmember Falcone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, thank you so much, Hillary. I appreciate this presentation tonight. And City Manager, I appreciate your introductory remarks about why we're doing this and what we've heard from the community. I really feel like, we've heard from the community for years through various surveys, through community input. The community wants an aquatic center, wants some sort of pool. I don't think that's up for question. I think what's really up for question is what exactly they want that to look like, right? Because we've heard really strongly that this is something they're looking for, yet the ballot measure failed, right? And so we missed the mark as far as the specifics of what they're looking for. A lot of these questions really focus on what went wrong, but I really want to hear kind of open-ended, what do you want as a community member? What is it that you want in an aquatic center? I think that would be really important. We have heard, we've all been listening to a lot of feedback from the community about this ballot measure. We've heard that folks felt it was too big, right? So can we dig in a little bit about that? Was it that did they feel that the recreation and community spaces were needed, or is that why they chose to not support the ballot measure, right? Is that why it was too big of a ballot measure, or was it some of the other things that were not related to the aquatic center? Curious to know, some of the other feedback we heard, whether it's operated by the city or a private organization. What are community members' thoughts on that? We know that was something that we heard from some of the folks in the opposition committee, but I'm wondering how much of the community feels that way. We also heard both a little bit during PFAC and also from community members, a desire to have something in the northern part of Kirkland as well. I'd like to explore a little bit about that. Like, would folks be interested in a partnership with Kenmore? I know Kenmore is working on, a feasibility study for building an aquatic center. Is that something that folks in our community would be interested in? Or I want to learn a little bit more about that, about what folks are looking for as far as geographically. Is that part of why it didn't pass? Kind of what is the interest there? Would folks prefer a northern end one or a southern Kirkland one? And also I'd be interested to hear more about what folks felt about the perceived cost. That's another piece of feedback that we heard from the community. Just better understanding, I think there was a lot of maybe not completely accurate information out there in the community about what the cost would be to residents. And so I'd like to understand that a little bit more. And also, this is kind of really nuanced and detailed, what folks are looking for. And I think a survey is a really good tool to get a very broad but shallow perspective of what the community feels. And I think it's really important for us to understand a little bit more depth as well. So I'd really like to see us do some follow-up qualitative as part of this as well. I don't know that whether this needs to be contracted out or something that I think less formally could be done by city staff, but we could ask at the end of the survey, we'll be following up with some respondents on some of their answers to the questions. Would you like to be included in that? And if so, provide, your email or phone number. We could follow up and have like a quick phone call, 5-minute phone call, just to ask a little bit more and to understand some of those qualitative nuances as to what people do want, what they would support. That would be really, really helpful in deciding whether or not to put forth another ballot measure, and if so, what that might look like, what the community is really looking like. So that's my input. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Arnold.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Hillary. The survey questions cover a lot of things, but I think they start with the assumption that Councilmember Falcone made, that the community wants a pool. And I'd like to make sure that we're gauging that level of interest in a priority. We ask questions, are property taxes too high? Is this pool too big? Was there too much focus on aquatics and community center versus other park stuff? What we don't ask is, what's your level of interest in investing in a pool versus other city priorities? And I'd like to see something about that to confirm or elucidate the assumption you're making, is how strongly does the community want a pool? Given everything else that's in here, I think we'll get some good information on what to do if that's the case, but I want to make sure that we're asking that question directly. Thank you.
Member Tim Chisholm.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Two questions. One, the site debate between Houghton and the North Kirkland Community Center. I would like to know what the construction cost difference would be, because the Houghton site is pretty flat and the North Kirkland Community Center represents the possibility of increased costs due to its terrain, I believe. Number two, this ballot measure Prop 1 was, I believe, $230 for every $1 million in assessed value. Is that right?
It was a little complicated. It was $280 written on the ballot, but then what it was going to end up costing was about $250 per million once we got the amended assessed value rates back.
Well, anyway, if we bring something back to the ballot measure, I'd like to know how low we can get that number. Because if we don't move that number significantly, I think we're going to have the same result in the vote. And, I would like to see how low we can get that number. And if we can get that number to something lower, but it has to be much lower. And I don't know what that exact number is, but it needs to be a significant difference between 280 and what we propose. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just add, Michael will talk a little bit about some of those funding number benchmarks in his slide. And then for your first question about the cost difference of the construction, I think the site costs were about $11 million different between Houghton Park and Ride being less and the North Kirkland Community Center. Is that? Depending on the size of the facility. So we can definitely bring back that specific information for the same size facilities at the two sites as well.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's important because if we move it north to address one concern, then we increase costs. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sweet.
I feel like we're picking at a scab here. This has been such an emotional issue, and it's been going on for so long. I'm interested in the answers to all of these questions, but they're all so nuanced. What I'm not sure that we are going to get from this survey, what I'm hearing on the street and what I'm hearing in emails is overwhelming fatigue with increased taxes. An interest in, is there any alternative way to fund something like this? Can we develop partnerships with the organizations that have businesses in or around Kirkland? Just other business models, private partnerships or private-public partnerships. So I think I'd like to see, I don't know, I don't want to hold it out as a lifeline because I know that that's always been there, but I'm hearing it enough from people who are expressing disinterest in going to the ballot again that I think it's an important consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I don't disagree with Councilmember Sweet's comments about the challenges this presents. And we have heard from members of the public about us examining the reason, some of the issues around the 2023 ballot measure and possibly doing a 2024 ballot measure. I think it's been suggested in some of the communications we've gotten that's means the city council somehow out of touch with the city, is not listening to the city. And actually, for my colleagues, I strongly disagree with that. I think the work that we're doing now is really about us listening to our community. Members of our community, a majority of our community on many occasions, including as part of the PROS plan, 45 some members of PFEC who spent something like 8 months analyzing this, our park board members who are some of our key advisors, community surveys, many times. We've had what has all indications are that a majority of our residents believe that this is one of their key priorities for public facilities in the city of Kirkland. I do agree with Deputy Mayor Arnold. It's important for us to check in on that and make sure that any assumptions we're making about that continue to be true. But I think it's simply a matter of good governance that we not actually eliminate choices for our voters, that we give our voters choices. None of the ballot measures for pool aquatic facilities since 2015 and in 2023, those two ballot measures weren't the same. And what we would propose in 2024 would be informed by this work that we're doing, how we can address the concerns that that voters expressed collectively in their 2023 vote. We can only put one option before the voters at a time, realistically. This would be really taking what we've seen in 2023, trying to really learn from it, and then presenting the voters with a choice. And I think that's a matter of good governance. I think that's a matter of us listening to the majority of our community that has expressed that this is a priority public facility for them, while also listening to and really reaching out to our voters who voted against the 2023 measure. So that does sort of lead to my principal key, what I believe is sort of the key issue, at least for me, is understanding we certainly should be checking our assumption about everything that we've heard about this being a priority for the community as a key public facility that they would like to see in the city of Kirkland. But once we do that, when we're talking to community members that support this as a public facility, I think it's important for us to understand if they voted against the ballot measure, I really want to understand why. I don't know how to get to that. I don't know if we can get to that through a survey, or whether it's more focused, qualitative discussions that we have with folks who express that they continue to support this as an important public facility, but voted against the 2023 measure. Those are folks I would really love to talk to, because those are some of the most important people. They want this, but what they saw in the 2023 ballot measure was not what they were looking for. So I know that sort of that mimics some of what I've heard from my other colleagues, but I just want to sort of emphasize that for me, that's sort of the key element. We have and it's sort of key to us listening to the community, both on the side of those who've expressed their interest in this type of public facility, but also those who, obviously, 59 to 60% of who voted against the 2023 measure. So with that, I'll stop. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody have additional comments? I'm just going to add a couple things. I also agree with getting qualitative information would be super helpful. To follow up on Councilmember Tim Chisholm's comments, these questions are very binary, and if we say, if you're going to pick Houghton or North Kirkland, there is a cost difference, which is one of the reasons that PFAC chose Houghton as per square foot. It was significantly lower. And if we just ask that in a yes or no, people aren't going to have the data. Along with the property tax question, it's not a yes or no. It is, what is your threshold for property taxes for a significant public amenity? So we've got to figure out how to phrase that question in a less yes or no binary way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'll have Michael come up here.
So just really quickly, one of the things that was the No campaign talked about the permanent levy, which was the proposal from PFAC and approved by the council. And so we had to ask ourselves, is it even possible to fund a focus pool with something that was term limited? So what we did is just a little bit of work just to show it is possible depending on what you choose. This, again, is not for a decision, but it was just to say that we have begun to start that evaluation so that if the feedback from the community is that they want to keep exploring it, just you have a relative sense to get to Councilmember Tim Chisholm's comment about cost. So I'm going to turn this over to our Finance Director, Michael Olson. He's just going to talk about this short table.
Thank you. Good evening. A levy lid lift for the purposes of paying for debt services is limited to 9 years. So each of these scenarios shows what would be costing the property owners for a levy for 9 years to raise various amounts. And it shows what the levy rate would be if it was just the levy paying for the debt service, or if the city added $750,000 a year from each of REIT and park impact fees, it could be reduced what the levy needed to be. I'll just do the middle line. To issue $50 million of debt for a 42,000 square foot facility would cost 15 cents per thousand of assessed valuation. So for $1 million home, that would be $150 a year. And that the city also budgeted $1.5 million of its own capital funding for that, it would be $110 a year, would reduce it by $40 a year.
And Michael or Hillary, can you remind us what the actual ballot measure was? In cents per thousand? 28 cents per thousand, right. So we just had a discussion about, is it possible to get close to half of what was on the ballot before? And again, it obviously would depend on what you selected and where you selected it and how big it was. But we just thought this would be at least good to have council as background. So happy to answer any questions on that.
Councilmember Sweet.
But a 9-year levy without anything to sustain any pool that we built would require significantly more investment from year 10 on. Am I correct?
Well, once it's constructed, you do need funds to operate it.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe this would be for the construction of a facility.
Which is what happened during Forward Thrust when they built all the swimming pools and they didn't have any O&M money.
Right. The city would have to fund O&M after the construction.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Can you remind us the square foot size of the 2023 ballot measure facility?
Yeah, it was 86,000 square feet at the Houghton Park and Ride site.
Thank you.
Councilmember Falcone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, thank you for this, Michael. This is really helpful. And thank you for translating it into amount of money per year for $1 million home. That's really helpful, I think, for us to get our brains around, right? I appreciate that. Can you, just to follow up to some of the questions we've heard, can you, Councilmember Sweet, thank you for that comment. And do we have an idea of how much O&M would cost the city? And my other question is looking at the option for the $750,000 a year each of REIT and park impact fees. What meaningful impact would that have on other projects that we may have in the pipeline that we may not be able to do? We may not have the answers tonight, but that's just things that I'd be interested in knowing.
Let me jump in on that. Yeah, so one of the challenges of deciding to give you this chart was because we knew it would raise exactly those questions, which are exactly the right questions, right? Was what about the rest of the story? So we haven't really presumed to go too far down that path because some of the issue of cost recovery and the operational subsidy will depend on what size facility you pick and what's in it and how it's programmed and so forth. So we would have a lot of work to do on that end to see how close we could get to a, say, 75 or 85% cost recovery for the facility to really tell you what it would be as an ongoing cost going on. Just a quick note, it would be a significant impact on the park fee to do routine maintenance and other facility improvements across the board if we made this kind of allocation, unless you chose to take it as something else like transportation and so forth. So while this is certainly doable, that sort of 750, it is also, it would be a significant opportunity cost from whatever else that you might do. So, but we haven't really said like what would we cut or anything like that, but it would be a significant investment.
Thank you.
Oh, Councilmember Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just trying to remember, during that discussion, I forgot what my question was. Hopefully I'll come up with it while I make this somewhat lightheartedly, I'm just going to, state that the 2023 ballot measure had its pluses, it had its minuses. One of its pluses was that it funded the operations and maintenance of the pool, a facility that we were going to build for generations of Kirklanders. We were going to have a source of funding for it. So it's unfortunate, but again, it had negative and minuses. Some of that may not have been fully appreciated by the voters, and so we are where we are, and that's fine. And we're going to learn more about this, hopefully, if we move forward with this further follow-up research. I am going to have to give it back to you, Madam Mayor, because I did want to make that observation, but I also had a question. If I think about it, I'll raise my hand. Thanks.
All right, anyone else?
Just one last comment. One of the things we don't have up here is a potential bond, which requires a 60%. Each of these options would be a 50% plus one, so that's certainly something we could also come back for. Our assumption was just really, is it within striking distance? So this was just to get a rough order of magnitude for council to think about. I think our assessment in PFEX previously was it would be difficult to get 60% in any scenario, but we could certainly run a bond scenario at 60% as well, which would lower the amount, but is obviously a higher threshold to pass. But again, this wasn't proposals, it was just to help set the stage of, is this, like I said, within striking distance? So.
Oh, Councilmember Black is back.
Yeah, if it's okay. Thank you. Yeah. What I was going to say was, I appreciate this information. I think the public's going to really appreciate this information. I think it's a really helpful place for framework from which we can start. And what I really like about this is, we are, again, back to my earlier comments about both listening to the majority of residents who see this as a key public facility they'd like to fund, and those who didn't want to fund it through the measure that we proposed in 2023 and the PFEC proposed in 2023. This is really responsive to that, because what we have here, what we're being presented, at least as a sort of concept, a preliminary concept, both addresses the size of the facility, which was a concern raised by the No campaign, and also addresses the idea of a permanent levy. I appreciate the direction we're going, and I, again, support us doing this further research so that we can really understand If there's another alternative out there that would make a lot of sense, that would be reasonable, achievable, fiscally responsible, and would address the stated needs of the community. Thanks.
Thank you. One of the questions I have, and I don't know if this is where it fits, but as we continue this conversation, will we be able to qualify residents to fit under our universal low-income relief program? So I'd like to have that conversation.
Thank you. Yes, it's our intent absolutely to bring that kind of information back as well, and that would be the intent, is to both have a Kirkland, lower cost for Kirkland residents than anyone else, and then also to have scholarships and qualified discounts similar to low income. So yes, we're building on that already.
Great, thank you. All right, Hillary?
Great. Well, this is the second to last slide, and this shows a condensed version of the comprehensive timeline table that was provided in your council packets. And the first column is dates if council were to look at an August 2024 ballot measure. The second column is dates if council were to look at November 2024. The dates shown in both columns are essentially the last possible date for each item to happen in order to meet the filing date. And so the filing date for August is May 3rd. And so I'm briefly going to discuss the August 2024 timeline and then share a couple of notes about the alternative November 2024 timeline. So as we know, council staff will come back to the council meeting on January 16th with the draft final survey questions for council's review. And then February 6th is really an important decision date for council members in the August 2024 timeline, where council will discuss whether or not to explore a ballot measure for August 2024. The statistically valid survey results will be shared at the meeting, and staff will have information about funds that would be needed for the contract for additional concept plans and cost estimate work for 2 facilities. And then at that point, there would be some of the different concept plan work and kind of costing and answering some of these questions work that would continue if council were deciding to move forward with the exploration. And there would be a few more meetings, as you can see on your schedules here. And then kind of the final meeting would be a special meeting on April 30th for council to vote on an ordinance and appoint the pro-con committee members. And so this is a really tight timeline, as you can see, and it's also important to stick with in order to meet that May 3rd filing due date with King County elections, because any delay might end up in additional meetings or resulting in not being able to meet the filing due date. And then if council were to follow a November 2024 exploration timeline in the second column, their survey would still be conducted in the same time, but then if council knew they only wanted to look at November 2024, on February 6th, that kind of final decision of should we continue exploring or not, there'd probably be a little bit more time to make that decision. One of the main factors here is that doing the additional concept plan and cost estimating work for the specific facility sizes, as well as the operations, takes a certain amount of time with our contractor, and so that's really the kind of chunk that needs to make sure there's enough time. So that's really what's allowed in the schedules here. And I think those are all the notes I have on the schedule. So that's really the end of the presentation that we had prepared for you. And so as next steps, we'll take all your really helpful feedback from tonight and share that with EMC research to hopefully incorporate into both the survey and then other potential exploration or gathering of input methods that we can take. And I've heard a couple ask for qualitative measures, and so we'll discuss that as staff. And we'll return to the January 16th meeting with final draft survey questions for council review. And then the statistically valid is wanting to consider August 2024. That would be the meeting at which to decide whether further exploration would be taking place or not. But again, that wouldn't be a decision of we're going to the ballot or not, but just kind of that we want to invest in further exploration. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any other questions if you have any other ones.
Anyone have any more questions? All right.
Sweet. I have a question.
Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Hillary, I'm wondering if you could have this deck sent to the whole council. The council packet only included the detailed timeline for the election and the primary, and I'd asked for some information on the general to have that particular option, and those dates side by side were super helpful. Both of them seem tight, depending on what we hear from the follow-up survey from the 2023 ballot measure, but I do want to have the option to say, let's make a decision, not just yes, no on August, but the option of potentially November. and the trade-offs for that. Thank you.
Anyone else? My two thoughts are deadline's tight, and it's hard for a yes and a no committee to turn around that quickly. I also would be curious what other ballot measures are going to be on the August. We know what's happening in November, but what's going to be on the ballot in August?
Yeah, at the moment, we are not aware of any other ballot measure being on the August ballot. That's one of the reasons I sort of targeted it as a discussion. We do know, as you mentioned, that there's likely to be a school district bond measure. They haven't fully decided that yet, but that's the indication they've given us. There possibly could be a Evergreen Health bond measure. Again, they haven't decided, but they said if they did go, they would go in November. And then we're also aware that there's several initiatives to the legislature that are likely to result in something being on the November ballot, either the initiative itself or the initiative and alternatives. And we know that one of those that has qualified would be a ballot measure that would repeal the Climate Act. So there's a lot on there. And then, of course, there's a presidential election, which creates great turnout for people who like to vote for ballot measures. So there's a lot pros and cons of November that we can talk about in future meetings. So there's definitely some pluses to November as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Hillary, Lynn, and Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick time check. This is when you normally take your short break, although we're also close to the end of our meeting. So just wanted to remind you, if you need that quick comfort break, we could do that.
Would you all like a break?
Oh, I'll defer to you.
Well, I think everybody else wants to keep going.
Okay, all right.
Welcome. And actually, you're lucky, because we're going to finish early on tonight, and I am not taking credit for that. So we are before 10 o'clock, which means that we have another opportunity for items for the audience.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, first we have council reports, regional reports and city manager report before items.
I knew I was going to goof up. Okay, let's do council member reports, and I'm going to start with Deputy Mayor Arnold.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a couple things to discuss since our December council meeting. The Puget Sound Regional Council Transportation Policy Board is in the middle of a lot of interesting discussions on how to prioritize climate and safety in the scoring of future projects and strengthen those things. There is some concern within some of our neighborhood cities on some of these policies on how they impact the development of regional centers, and I expect that the TPB is going to have some extra meetings in January to go flesh these out, but stay tuned for that. On Tuesday, December 19th, the former mayor and I met with the sustainability ambassadors to check in on the SNAP program, where the kids in Lake Washington School District working on sustainability are working with our sustainability plans and neighborhood plans, and they want to update us on that plan, which hopefully we'll see sometime in the first quarter of this year. But they also may be wanting to discuss the future of the program. The fall continuation of this is not funded, and it's going to be before we talk about the next budget cycle. So there may be something that from that coming forward. And then finally, the former mayor and I did a tour of the Waste Management Recycling Center in Woodinville. This is the second tour I've done. It was probably 5 years ago since I've last done it. It's gone through some significant upgrades. They're much better at recovering plastic, and overall they're recovering 88% of the materials to recycle compared to contaminated materials, and people doing what they called wish cycling, which is putting something in the recycling, hoping that something would happen, but not something that they are set up for. All this material gets returned in our recycling bins, and it's an automated process that sorts it out and figures out, okay, here's the mixed paper and the plastic and the aluminum and the glass. It's really fascinating. I would recommend the tour if any of you have the opportunity in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Falcone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, thank you for that report, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Black and I visited maybe 2 years ago. I know they were about to do like a bunch of really cool upgrades, and we said, oh, we want to go back once those upgrades have been done. So it sounds like they've been done. We need to go back and check it out and have some compare before and after. So thank you for that. That's good to know that they've been moving along with those projects. I will keep my update relatively brief. As you know, I represented Kirkland at the SCA PIC, Public Issues Committee meeting in December. As I mentioned earlier, I'm aware that I owe you notes from those. Thank you for your patience as I am catching up on being on break for 2 weeks with my family and enjoying myself and relaxing. But part of that meeting, one of the items that we discussed was the SCA board at our November meeting had decided to ask SCA PIC to provide input on our suggestion and our letter that we sent to SCA to send a letter. This is a lot of letters I'm talking about. To send a letter to the King County Executive about the potential ballot measure this fall. PIC was very supportive. I don't think there were any comments in opposition. All the comments were extremely supportive, had great ideas about what to include in the letter. You may also remember that I was on vacation during the SCA board meeting. That was a follow-up to that. And so I had hoped to have an update on that for you tonight about the specifics of the letter or what was discussed in that meeting, but I don't yet. But I will have that for you shortly. Either staff and or myself will follow up and get that information for you. But just wanted you to know that support continues. I had provided an update at our last meeting that the SCA board was very supportive, and now SCA PIC is also very supportive and gave great input. So hopefully that letter will be going out soon.
Great.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you. I think the only thing I'm going to report out on is on Thursday, we are going to be having an all-day long session at Cascade Water Alliance, talking about the final decisions around who we're going to engage in a long-term contract for the provision of water, whether it be Tacoma or Seattle. Both Tacoma and Seattle will be presenting that day, and they have very different approaches. And I am hoping, not sure if you have thought in terms of this city manager, but I think we need to have a staff person there, and I'm just not sure who the appropriate person is. I mean, maybe it's still John, but he's going to be so missed.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we are evaluating that.
Okay, great. But that decision is coming very soon. It will happen within the first quarter, and this is really a discussion that opens up a regional approach to water that has never been considered, because Seattle would never willing to consider a regionalization of services, and they are finally doing that. So it's huge. And with that, that's all I got to report.
All right, Councilmember Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2 items. First, I wanted to let my colleagues know that in lieu of a meeting of the principals of the Regional Crisis Response Agency, or RACER, in lieu of a December meeting, the director of RACER sent out a year-end update, and I think it's a really helpful update, and I'm going to, I received that just the other day. I'm going to forward that on to you so that you all have that additional information about where RACER currently stands. It also has some helpful information about forecasting the work on the tenant improvements for the crisis clinic and the opening of that crisis clinic in 2024. Something I know I'm excited about. I know all my colleagues are excited about too. So I will provide that information, and then there will be a meeting of the principals of RACER on Thursday, January 24th. I'll be attending, and then I'll certainly provide everyone with my normal notes for you on that meeting. And then on the next item I wanted to discuss was an item that could lead to a legislative request memorandum. This is a matter of sort of addressing some comments we've received from community volunteers who volunteer for City of Kirkland in different capacities. And some of the feedback we've received from community members who are interested in volunteering, they've asked the question, why are we being required to do a criminal background check? We've heard this in the context of folks who are volunteering to maintain traffic medians. We've heard this from folks who are interested in volunteering to maintain our pedestrian flags. And so what I've talked to city staff about is the possibility of just sharpening our pencils a little bit and taking a little closer look rather, at the circumstances in which we require criminal background checks for our community volunteers. We already, our program already requires background checks in certain volunteer roles, but not others. I'd like us to take a closer look at that and whether there may be some additional categories of volunteers where a background check would not be required. Just a little bit, I guess, the reason this is an issue that I feel strongly about is we've heard a lot from over the past several years about barriers to reentry. When folks have made a mistake in their life, they've been they've committed a crime, they've been convicted of that crime, and they have served their sentence. There are many barriers to reentry. I want the city of Kirkland to make sure that we're examining everything that we do and making sure that if there's a way that we can lower barriers to reentry, that we do so. Folks who are wanting to be civically engaged and volunteer for our city, they shouldn't be prevented from doing that by a criminal background check. One of the things we've talked about as a council before is criminal background checks are kind of a blunt instrument. They're not as effective as maybe the broader public assumes they are, and therefore they're not as helpful a tool as you might think they would be, and they can actually be misused, and they can be misused to prevent people from being able to sort of re-engage with our community, and we don't want to. And I have an interest in us not doing that. So, with the mayor's permission, I'm going to make a motion for an LRM. I move that the city manager provides a legislative request memo that evaluates the current practice of the city requiring background checks for certain categories of city volunteers. The LRM should highlight the current volunteer background check process, the reasons why the city requires a volunteer background check, and identify potential alternatives for council consideration, including potential alternatives in which the city no longer requires background checks for some additional categories of volunteers.
Second. It's been moved by Councilmember Black, second by Councilmember Falcone to do an LRM on the relativity of criminal background checks.
Our community volunteer background check program.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Councilmember Tim Chisholm.
I'm in favor of the LRM. It sounds like a great idea. My only comment would be I would be interested in understanding what criteria we're using for exclusion if we run a criminal background check, because I don't understand where we're at on that or what criteria we're looking at. Thank you.
Happy to include that.
We have a motion to do an LRM. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Councilmember Tim Chisholm, welcome to your first meeting.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to report on?
Thank you for the mentorship and guidance that all of you have provided me in the months leading up to this meeting. And so thank you for those of you that have taken the time to meet with me and provide me with guidance and mentorship, and especially you, Penny. Thank you.
She's pretty awesome. And we know you'll have questions, so reach out anytime.
Thank you.
Couple things I want to report on is legislative session begins on Monday. Woohoo! It's going to be an interesting one. King County Regional Homeless Authority is seeking volunteers for the annual point-in-time count, which counts the unhoused people in King County. I will be volunteering. It's January 2nd through February 2nd. If anybody wants to join me in volunteering, let's team up. And if you have any changes that you want to make to where you sit on the dais, please send me an email and we'll try to sort that out. So thank you. City Manager.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So one comment and one request. So just want to let you all know, with one of my hats as the board member of the Peace Operating Board and Joint Board, we have officially transferred everything from the Joint Board. It's no longer a project, it's now the Peace Operating Board. So the system has been successfully implemented. We have spent almost $300 million to convert the entire public safety analog system to now a digital system. There's still some kinks to work out, but that was a huge milestone that we accomplished at the end of last month, just before the end of the new year. And so we'll now be moving forward to a much better public radio operating system. So there'll be a bigger update on that coming soon. Second one is a request, which is we have had several council members have been receiving comments from a person with potential litigation with the city, and so we'd actually like to ask for a short executive session following the public comment period to discuss that potential litigation, and the city attorney wants to add a few words on that, so we estimate that might take about 20 minutes.
Yeah, just to add, this doesn't require a motion, but we are asking that the council consider a 20-minute executive session to discuss two different matters, one brief and one in more detail that relate to issues of potential litigation that you've been hearing from third parties on. We'd like to bring you up to date on those. So that would follow the second items from the audience, and our suggestion would, Madam Mayor, would be that you indicate that we'd be going into executive session to discuss potential litigation, that you expect it to take 20 minutes, and that we'd be reconvening only for purposes of adjournment.
Okay, thank you. Is everyone all right with that? Okay, thank you.
And
Matt?
finally, for me, is any calendar update requests from the council beyond what you've seen so far?
Man,
I don't know that this is a calendar update. Thank you, Madam Mayor. But something that Deputy Mayor Arnold sent me earlier today makes me ask the question. It seems like we have talking about this for a long time, but we have a coin, the City Council Outstanding Service Award coin. We have never defined the criteria by which we can award that coin to people. I want to suggest that we appoint a subgroup, or that the mayor and deputy mayor appoint a subgroup to do precisely that within the next month.
All right. City Manager, you want to help me here?
I have that noted, so we can bring back that recommendation to the January 16th meeting. Selecting a subcommittee.
Great.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Point of clarification, is the direction here that we appoint the subcommittee at the next meeting, or that the subcommittee comes back with recommendations to the next committee? Because I interpreted Councilmember Sweet's comments to move quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, I interpreted them as the recommendation for the committee next week, so if I was incorrect on that, let me know.
Yeah, can I just suggest that the mayor and deputy mayor maybe could just appoint 3 folks and let us know?
Right now?
Or next week?
Or can I just ask for volunteers?
Good idea.
Yes. Are there 3 council members who would like to volunteer to be on the subcommittee? Councilmember Sweet, Councilmember Black, Councilmember Falcone. Anyone else? Did I leave anybody out?
Great.
Okay, we have our subcommittee.
And city manager's office will work with you to staff you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. It's 9:35. I was a little eager earlier, but now we are at our second items for the audience. This is additional time in our meeting where we can normally, I'm going to have to separate these two, where we normally can hear from the public on matters that are not quasi-judicial or otherwise scheduled for public hearing on our agenda. The rest of the meeting has been concluded before 10 p.m. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to make comments now, either in person or via telephone or Zoom? If you are present or virtual and would like to address the council, please sign up using the public comment instruction link or the posted QR code. For those participating by phone, please dial *9 to be recognized to speak. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Last chance. All right, thank you. We will now recess for executive session. As mentioned earlier by the city attorney, we expect to return in 20 minutes only for the purpose of adjournment. So, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.